You think I don't know what you did? Her voice sliced through the stillness, defiant, hands trembling only slightly as she held up the sheaf of yellowed papers. Put that down, you don't understand a damn thing, he snapped, sweat beading beneath his collar as eyes darted toward the side door. Try me, she shot back, fingers tight on the documents. A hard scoff too rehearsed to be real. Whatever you think all this means, it won't save you, you're out of time. They believed you once, she whispered, voice deadly quiet now, but I've got proof, all of it. And who do you think'll believe you this time? Disbelief bordering on panic. They will, she turned, her heart thudding, and faced the circle that was forming behind her, faces half shadow, half hope. He stared back, mouth opening then shutting in mute calculation, as the tension snapped taut. But standing here at the edge, she remembered a time when every lie still felt like mercy. To understand how she ended up in this fight, you'd have to go back, before the lockdown, before the storm doors slammed shut, back to the day the insults started pretending to be charity. $44.11. Miranda stared at her checking account under the weak dashboard light, her thumb swiping the screen again like the number might change. The fog was rolling in off the valley in Buchanan County, West Virginia, swallowing the single-lane road ahead in Worrells. In the backseat, her daughter Ruby, just about to turn 9 and sharper than a tack, let out a sigh and kicked her purple sneakers at the battered duffel bag wedged beside her booster seat. Are we really sleeping here again? Ruby's voice was a shiver, edged with the bravery she hadn't quite worn out yet. Miranda bit back the truth she couldn't afford. There was no more gas money once morning came, not with food still to last the week. Only tonight, sweetie, then we'll see about the new place, she managed, keeping her tone even as she reached to tuck a blanket around her daughter's shoulders. Ruby frowned, quiet for a second. Then, does the new place at least have a roof that doesn't leak? I don't like when my socks get all swampy. Beneath the playful jab, she was scanning her mother's face for cracks. We'll make it cozy. Besides, you're the only 9-year-old I know brave enough to handle a leaky roof. Miranda forced a smile, clicking off the phone. She reached for her only umbrella, already bent from the night before, its one good rib poking out like a broken wing. Just as she did, her phone buzzed, a text flashing on the cracked screen. Told you she'd come crawling. The sender line read Paul, followed by a smug little smiling emoji, her father-in-law. Fragments of their last conversation spun in her head, ugly words thrown like rocks at a funeral parlor back in Charleston. You get the dump on Route 2 and not a penny more, Paul had laughed, slapping her on the back with mock comfort. Says so right here, all legal. Take it or leave it, sweetheart. 15 minutes ago, she'd stood in line behind his bulk, her mother-in-law Donna pressed up next to him in her pale pink cardigan, fake smiling as the lawyer announced. And to Miranda Noland, our deepest sympathies, and here he'd let the pause drool, one roadside motel assessed at negative value, liens pending. Woolly laughter rolled through the room. Donna chimed in, voice syrupy and lethal. Maybe you'll make something of it, dear, or at least get out of our way. Paul's nephew Joey, whose only job, apparently, was to hold the keys, had tossed them to her like a bad magic trick. Good luck, Aunt Miranda. Last guy in there found a dead possum behind the ice machine, he'd snickered. His younger sister Kendall didn't even look up from her phone. The manila envelope containing the motel deed was thin, one corner ripped. But even in her disgust, Miranda caught a glimmer, the tiniest flaw in the lawyer's speech, a name half mumbled as he folded away faded documents. Billy Noland. Her late husband's grandmother, not mentioned for years, not in any of the trust paperwork or funeral squabble. That was the first knot she'd pull, her first real chance. If you've ever watched someone hand you scraps and call it a blessing, hold tight. Sometimes, the smallest crack in the wall hides the only way out. They arrived at the Heartline Motor Motel, shrouded in fog so thick it seemed to press in on the worn turquoise gates. The sign out front flickered, "Vac-CY." Every clapboard groaned in the wind, the condemned sticker peeling at the corner of the office door. Miranda hauled Ruby's duffel out of the old Camry, umbrella catching in the gate's rusted links. Inside, it smelled of mildew and defeat. The carpet squished and the only light fixture buzzed angrily overhead. Ruby followed, clutching worn notebooks and a half-eaten sleeve of crackers. Her first clue, Paul's big hurry to hand over the keys, his nervous glances at the broken fireplace in the lobby, and that slip of the tongue about Billy. Something didn't add up. "Come on, let's find which room is the least awful," Miranda offered, swallowing down the humiliation for now. But the nag she felt didn't fade. There was something Paul wanted hidden in plain sight. She pocketed the envelope, hungry for answers, and for the first time in months, hope tightened its grip. Miranda stayed awake most of that first night on the sagging bed in room 6, listening to the drip from the bathroom sink and the creak of every plank whenever Ruby shifted in her sleep. At 2 a.m., when the fog pressed up hard enough to turn the windows opaque, old floorboards whispered with stories she hadn't lived. She kept thinking about Billy Noland, the way no one mentioned the name for years, except in mutters and backroom glances at family gatherings. By dawn, Miranda knew what she had to do. With Ruby still curled beneath her patchwork blanket, Miranda tiptoed into the lockup office and started searching. The desk yielded only sticky receipts and a single old photo, a black and white snapshot of Billy and a man Miranda didn't know, standing in front of the motel's fireplace. Billy held up what looked like a hotel deed with a faint grin. The fireplace behind her was different then. One brick along the left side was chipped, stood out against the others, and a shadow along the base suggested a hollow. Miranda's heart hammered, the first clue. She shoved the photo deep into her coat pocket, grabbed the motel keys, and jimmied open the fireplace's soot-stained iron grate. The brick with the chip was loose but heavier than she thought. It groaned as she worked it free. The hollow behind it revealed the edge of something metallic, just visible beneath the dust, an old steel safe almost as wide as a shoebox. She reached for a screwdriver from the toolbox Joey had tossed in with the keys. The lock stuck, rusty from years of neglect, but after a tense few minutes it gave a reluctant click. Inside were 3 folders, stamped Heartline Motor Motel, Suncrest Apartments, and Noland Grocery, S. 1962. Miranda blinked. Those other 2 properties shouldn't exist, not if Paul and Donna had told the truth. She opened the thickest folder. Inside, property deeds, closing documents, 5 years' worth of rent rolls, and a spiral notebook filled with tally marks and payments received. Names and addresses, all signed Billy Noland. She'd been lied to. Her inheritance was never just this dump, and the family had spent years hiding it. A sudden crash from the parking lot startled her. Ruby, half awake, stood at the door. "Mom, did you find something?" the girl asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Miranda smiled, the weight of possibility beginning to replace defeat. "We might have just found our way out," she said softly. But as her phone buzzed again, this time a frantic, missed call from Paul, she knew they weren't out of danger yet. Only hours later, as sunlight tried to burn through the fog, Miranda felt her pulse drum with cautious hope. She slipped the folders into her backpack, leaving everything else untouched for now. When they left the office, a black sedan idled at the far edge of the lot. Paul emerged, shoulders lifted high, Donna at his side in her cardigan and silent composure, while Joey hovered a few paces behind, gaze flicking between Miranda and her bag. Paul stomped toward her, his boots cutting ruts in the soggy ground. "That place is condemned for a reason," he called, pitching his voice for effect. "Don't go poking where you don't belong, Miranda." "You sound nervous, Paul," Miranda replied, forcing calm into every syllable, almost like something in there might matter after all. Paul sneered, glancing at Donna. "Just making sure you understand what you've got. Nobody wants it. Cut your losses." Ruby stood at Miranda's hip and scowled at them, but Joey flashed a warning look, quick, almost regretful, before sticking both hands deep in his pockets. The family turned, leaving tire tracks behind. As the sedan pulled away, Miranda whispered to herself, "I never belonged on their side of the line anyway." Back inside, she ran her fingers over the brittle paper in the folder again and again. Every signature called up a memory. Billy teaching her grandkids to bake pies on slow Sundays, Billy's stern warnings about keeping good books. But deeper than nostalgia, there was a challenge: dig deeper. The safe in the fireplace was just the beginning. If every lie they'd spun was cover for something bigger, Miranda owed it to herself, and to Ruby to keep going. The trek to the Suncrest apartments took an hour and a half, the world outside the cracked windshield blurring as fog lifted and slick, patchy sunlight lit up hills scarred by old mining. Ruby picked cereal from a plastic bag, legs swinging in rhythm with every bump on the pothole-riddled county road. "Why are we going so far, Mom?" she asked, voice small but steady. Miranda didn't sugarcoat it. "I think there's more than what they told us, honey," she explained, eyes on the road. "The people who gave us the motel thought we wouldn't look any further." Ruby made a face, scrunching her nose. "You mean Grandpa Paul? He always talks too much at Christmas." Miranda managed a smile, letting herself remember. The Christmas Paul told her she'd always be just the girl from nothing, a threat that simmered behind every toast. Joey used to pull her aside and whisper, "Don't take him serious, he forgets what matters." Even back then, Miranda could sense what the family feared losing. They arrived at Suncrest Apartments, a faded blue triplex with chipped columns and flower beds gone to wild clover. Taped on the inside of the door was a rent roll printout with Billy Nolan's name at the bottom, initialed carefully each month. A tenant, an elderly man in a Cubs hat, opened his window and peered down. "You Nolan kin," he called, suspicion thick in his accent. Miranda steadied herself and called, "Yes, sir, Billy's granddaughter-in-law. I have some business here." He grunted but handed her a battered mailbox key. "Your kin took our rent for 5 years, told us the place would be fixed up soon." His tone softened. "Billy used to bring my wife jams. That all stopped when Paul and his wife started running things." That was another clue. Paul had been collecting money off properties he swore were worthless, cutting Miranda out of any rights. Ruby tugged her sleeve. "Mom, did Grandma Billy ever meet me? Was she nice?" Miranda smiled, tears stinging as she took in how much Ruby had missed. "She'd have loved you, especially your freckles. She liked people with stories written on their faces." Inside apartment 2B, Miranda unlocked the battered desk and found a second, smaller safe. The passcode, written on the back in Billy's distinct looping script, was Ruby's birthday. She opened the safe to find a stack of checks, endorsements to estate of Billy Nolan, all recent, none listed in probate. Clipped to the stack was a note in Billy's hand, "Trust only those who remember." Underneath was a Polaroid photograph. Miranda's wedding day, Billy standing beside her with a hand on her shoulder, Paul lurking in the background, never quite meeting the camera's gaze. Miranda's breath caught, another piece of the puzzle. All at once the subtle cracks split wide, Billy's trust in handwriting, the odd phrasing in the lawyer's reading, and Paul's nervousness. Something in the attic at the motel tugged at Miranda's mind, the last place no one had checked. "We need to go back," she told Ruby, voice gaining strength with every word. "Something's still hidden in that old motel." They drove, every mile fueling resolve. Wind lashed the motel awning by the time Miranda and Ruby returned. The parking lot was empty, save for the breeze scuttling dry leaves across cracked asphalt and the battered sign groaning. Miranda carried Ruby up the stairs to the attic. She'd forgotten until that morning that the motel even had an attic. The hatch was stuck, but she jammed the screwdriver in and forced it open. Inside, dust motes sparkled in the slanted light. Discarded linens, boxes of broken lamp bases, and photos with curled edges filled most of the space. It was claustrophobic, the air thick and cold. But Miranda's eyes landed on a framed photograph taped awkwardly behind a set of cardboard boxes. It was a panorama of Billy and her husband, posed at a family reunion outside the motel. Miranda turned it over. The frame felt heavier than it looked. Peeling back masking tape revealed a false back. Inside it, sandwiched between yellowed cardboard, lay one last envelope, Billy's original handwritten will, dated and signed with all the names the family had glossed over. Her own name, Miranda Nolan, noted as sole heir and caretaker of all properties listed in Schedule 1, including the Suncrest Apartments. Her fingers shook, tears pricking as she stared at the date. It was months before Billy's decline. There, black and white, was proof the family had lied. Before the tears could fall, Ruby's hand curled in Miranda's. "You did it, Mom. Grandma Billy picked you." Miranda exhaled. "I just hope we're not too late, sweetheart." As if on cue, her phone buzzed, another text from Paul. This one said, "Closing Friday, you don't own anything, stop sniffing or get out." Friday was 2 days away. She clutched the will to her chest. "Game on," she whispered. The motel's rickety stairs groaned as Miranda hurried down, clutching both the original will and rental documents. She loaded Ruby into the car, starting toward the only person she had left to trust, the lawyer who'd handled Billy's affairs before Paul muscled in. The drive to Braxton's law office was grueling, rain pelting so hard the windshield wipers thumped in time with Miranda's pulse. When they arrived, the lawyer, Mr. Braxton, answered in shirt sleeves, his desk a war zone of paper and empty mug rings. Miranda slammed the original will on his desk. "You said Billy couldn't have written a will after she got sick. What about this?" Braxton's eyes widened, magnifying behind his thick glasses. He took a penlight and examined the document with the steady hands of a man who'd seen betrayal play out in slow motion. For a moment, he said nothing. "Where did you know? I don't want to know. This changes everything." His voice was low, grave. Ruby squeezed Miranda's elbow. "He looks scared. Is that good?" "That's very good, honey," Miranda said, not taking her eyes from the lawyer. Braxton cleared his throat. "Billy's handwriting is unmistakable. I'll bring in a forensic expert, but this is the original, all right." He shook his head in disbelief, scanning the other deeds. "Paul's played a dangerous game, Miranda. The developer's contract only stands if Paul's sole heir. This changes all the dominoes." Miranda's hands rested steady on her daughter's back. "So what now?" Braxton checked the clock, running a thumb over the will's embossed notary stamp. "If we notify the court by Thursday and present this document, we can halt the sale, but we need ironclad authentication. My old friend Dr. Owen's the best handwriting expert in Charleston. Get these to her today. Can you manage that?" Miranda thought of her thinning wallet. "If you can get us the right person, I'll be there. Just what happens to Paul and Donna?" Braxton pursed his lips. "If the court rules they collected rent fraudulently, it triggers a mandatory IRS review. They could lose everything. You need to be careful, Miranda. People in desperate corners do desperate things." Ruby's eyes widened at the word fraudulently. "Are we going back to the motel or to jail, Mom?" Miranda chuckled softly, precious brightness in the gloom. "Neither, we're moving forward." Braxton picked up the phone. "I'll call Dr. Owen now. You pack a lunch and get on the road. And Miranda, don't answer any calls from Paul or Donna, not until we have this locked down. They can't hurt you if you beat them to the courthouse." Miranda nodded, awash in the rush of control for the first time since her marriage fell apart. "Thank you, Mr. Braxton. I won't let them take any more." 10 minutes later, Miranda and Ruby were halfway to Charleston, the folder with Billy's will buckled in the passenger seat, static rolling off the radio. It felt like the world was waiting to see if she could keep her courage together until Friday. That afternoon, Miranda walked into Dr. Owen's cramped handwriting analysis lab, a maze of battered file cabinets, old diploma frames, and magnifiers. The expert peered over thick glasses as Miranda handed over the original will. "It'll take a few hours," Dr. Owen said, her fingers already sorting through Billy's script, cross-comparing signatures, pen pressure, and dating. "Did you know Mrs. Noland well?" "Well enough to trust her more than anyone else in that family," Miranda said, steady, but every second stretched as Dr. Owen pored over every loop and tail. Dr. Owen's assistant hovered at Miranda's shoulder, eyes flitting from the papers to the mother and daughter poised tensely in battered chairs. "Mom, I'm hungry," Ruby whispered. Miranda nodded. "Just a little bit longer. I'll get you fries when we leave, promise." As sunlight dipped behind slate clouds, Dr. Owen emerged again, face split by a grin so abrupt Miranda's heart dropped. This handwriting is hers, all right. Pre-illness, before any cognitive decline. Court won't dispute it. You've got your proof. Miranda blinked back relief so fierce it hurt. Before she could thank the doctor, her phone lit up again. Paul, heard you talk to Braxton. Too late, papers are signed. Miranda texted back, words careful as knives. I have the original will, court tomorrow. No answer. But the game finally truly was in her hands. Before dawn on Friday, Miranda and Ruby left the motel behind and drove into Charleston as storm clouds broke, rain spattering car windows. The city's courthouse a hulking gray sentinel at the heart of it all. She met Braxton on the courthouse steps, his hair slick under a battered umbrella. A fresh copy of Billy's will glowed white in a waterproof sleeve. The exhibit's deeds, deposit slips, rent checks were clipped and ready. All around, attorneys and heirs clustered in the chill, waiting. Braxton handed Miranda a note. They tried to push through the sale at 8 a.m. We flagged the registrar. Everything's in flux until your petition is heard. Ruby shivered beside her, but Miranda saw that Joe, Paul's nephew, was there, lurking with eyes darting, but this time he didn't smirk. Paul and Donna, meanwhile, were already inside, faces pinched white, Donna's lips moving in silent curses, Paul's fingers clamped around an expensive briefcase. Miranda and Ruby entered the probate chamber. The panel of judges sat silent as Miranda, Braxton, Paul, and Donna took their places, across a scarred wooden table, tension humming. Before a word was spoken, Paul leaned in, voice a snake's hiss. Give up, you barely belong in this room. Miranda faced him calm. Billy knew who I was, that's what matters. Donna coughed, fixing Miranda with a glare. You're a nobody, Miranda, always were. Braxton intervened, voice measured and poised. Your Honors, I move to present new evidence. A will executed by Billy Noland months before the one currently in the court's file, authenticated by expert review, and specifying Miranda Noland as sole heir to all listed properties. He placed the documents before the panel, Dr. Owen's report attached. A judge examined the signatures under a lens, murmuring, distinctive, consistent with all other legal filings. Paul's composure cracked for the first time. That's not possible. The lawyer read the other will after Billy fell ill. Those papers are fake, Your Honor. Miranda must have forged them. Braxton was ready. Handwriting analysis, Your Honor, and supporting documents, the rental records, tenant payments, all collected under false pretense by Mr. Noland here. Every year since Billy's passing. Donna's hands fluttered on the armrest. None of this matters now, the sale is done. Actually, announced a bailiff, entering with a bundle of sealed files. IRS agents are requesting access to these records. Audit order signed this morning. Miranda felt the room pivot, all eyes on Paul and Donna. Paul blustered, you have to give us time, you didn't. Miranda reached deep into her purse, drew out the stack of deposit slips and deeds. She stood, holding them high. You think I don't know what you did? She demanded, voice echoing off the marble. Paul's voice rose, louder but shrill. Put that down, you don't understand a damn thing. Try me, Miranda snapped back, fingers white-knuckled around the stack as the judge signaled for silence. Joey, off to the side, hung his head, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Paul went on, desperation thinning his bravado. Whatever you think all this means, it won't save you. You're out of time. The judge spoke, tone unforgiving. Time is precisely why we're here. There are penalties for defrauding the estate and the government. IRS will recover every misappropriated dollar. Donna broke, voice rising. He told me she changed her mind. Paul, tell them she changed her mind. They believed you once, Miranda whispered, her words steady and low, but I've got proof, all of it. Paul didn't answer, just glared at her with undisguised fury, sweat painting lines at his brow. A pair of IRS agents approached, one reading aloud, "Federal order. Seizure of assets pending full review of funds collected from Suncrest Apartments and Noland Grocery, et al., under estate misrepresentation." Miranda's voice grew soft, deadly. "And who do you think'll believe you this time?" Paul's mouth worked, but he found nothing to say. Donna shrank back, clutching her purse. The judge turned to Miranda. "Mrs. Noland, under these circumstances, you are now recognized as sole administrator and heir. Sheriff, enforce closure order on further sale attempts. The IRS will manage remainder of collections." Braxton squeezed Miranda's shoulder, a quiet support. "That's it, Miranda, you did it." Ruby beamed up at her, a rare, unguarded joy. "So we have a home." Miranda leaned down, pulling her daughter close. "We have all we need," she whispered for Ruby alone. Donna buried her face in her hands. Paul sat frozen as the agents led him and Donna out, reporters crowding around. The room's tension snapped, just as it had, silent and sharp, in every nightmare Miranda had since her marriage ended. Outside, Joey caught Miranda's eye. "I'm sorry," he murmured, hushed so only she could hear. "I wanted to tell you, I just didn't think." "It's over," Miranda said, not unkind. He nodded, understanding it was more than forgiveness, only closure and nothing more. The courthouse steps were slick, but Miranda felt the ground steadier than ever beneath her boots. Word spread quickly through Buchanan and Charleston, Paul and Donna under federal investigation, the Heartline Motel stripped from their control, their accounts frozen. The IRS swept through both the motel and Noland Grocery, shuttering the doors New Year's Day. The townsfolk, many of whom Billy had quietly helped over decades, watched the collapse with a mix of relief and grim satisfaction. Those who'd feared Paul's sway now came to the edge of Miranda's inherited property with casseroles, mending tools, and offers to help strip out rot. Miranda found herself at the center of a whirlwind, interviews, depositions, IRS agents repeating, "We've never seen something quite like this in a family fight." But there was vindication, too. Each day, she reclaimed another room of the motel, another patch of overgrown grass, another memory Billy had left behind. Miranda and Ruby moved into the apartment above the motel's office, which, after a deep cleaning, smelled faintly of lemons and the past. Ruby started at a new school and thrived, her notebooks filled with sketches of the motel's sign relit, a hopeful neon welcome. They held the first family reunion the following spring, the first in 15 years. Joey came with his wife and new baby, bringing a peace offering of cranberry bread. Several tenants from Suncrest arrived, marveling at the transformation. Miranda let them repaint the doors, crack open jars of Billy's last strawberry preserves, and raise a cheer for the woman who'd saved them all without ever announcing it. Every year since, Miranda made sure the Heartline Motel's sign glowed at dusk, visible for miles. She'd rebuilt what mattered, one open door at a time. No one dared question her worth again. When power changes hands, some expect fireworks. Sometimes the real victory is quiet, echoing in laughter across a lobby that once stood silent. Miranda learned that the only inheritance worth fighting for was dignity and the courage to claim what others tried to bury. If you want to see how strength is built, watch a woman put shattered lives back together from the floor up. One thing endured in Buchanan County long after Paul and Donna's downfall: the stubborn, quiet knowledge that no matter how many times someone tries to write you out of your own story, the truth eventually wins. No matter who's holding the pen. Late that spring, just after the last frost retreated from the hillsides and the motel's wildflower beds burst with Billy's untended lilies, Miranda let herself breathe. She stood at the edge of the parking lot one soft blue evening, hands deep in the pockets of an old canvas coat. The neon vacancy sign buzzed, newly whole. Across the patchwork lot, Ruby and a pair of neighbor girls dashed between puddles, shrieking laughter into the lengthening dusk. Joey approached hesitant, clutching a battered box. "I found these up at Noland Grocery before the IRS locked the place. Figured you should have 'em." He set the box at Miranda's feet and shifted on his heels. Miranda's voice was gentler now. "Thank you, Joey, you really didn't know." He met her gaze, shame hard in his brown eyes. Didn't want to know, I guess. Paul was family, but Billy, she always told me, protect what matters, not what glitters. I'm glad you fought. Miranda nodded, weighing forgiveness but holding onto truth. Hard lessons, huh? He let out a breath between his teeth, half a smile. If you need help, I'm not running anymore. Then paint starts at 8, Miranda replied, allowing herself a smile. We'll need every brush in the county. Joey grinned, I'll bring coffee for the crew. When he left, Miranda kneeled beside the box and tugged open the flaps. Inside, laminated menus from decades ago, guest books scrawled with travelers' names, and at the very bottom a letter in Billy's hand, addressed simply, for M. Miranda's breath caught. She unfolded it, Billy's voice conjured in loops of blue ink. Darling, if this finds you, you fought the long fight. Trust kindness, not cleverness. The old place is yours, every brick, every story. Tell Ruby she has my laugh. Make this a home. Love. Bay. Tears slid free, silent, hot with 1,000 unsaid goodbyes. She folded the letter back, pressing it to her chest until her heartbeat steadied. From the lobby's open window, Ruby called, Mom, the twins want cocoa and I promised them we had the secret recipe. Miranda smiled, swiping away tears. Coming, kiddo, remind me to get more marshmallows tomorrow. Inside, the motel was bright. A soft clang of mugs, the shuffle of feet, voices wrapping around her like the warmest quilt. For years, Miranda had believed what they said about her, that she didn't belong, that survival was the only inheritance she'd ever claim. Tonight, she stood behind the counter, poured cocoa into chipped mugs, and watched her daughter laugh between friends. Joey wrestled a ladder into place, already spattered with sky blue paint. In the hall, a gray-haired neighbor hammered a loose baseboard without waiting to be asked. No one in the room asked for proof of her worth or permission to belong. Ruby skipped to her side, eyes bright. You happy, Mom? She asked. Miranda nodded, brushing back her daughter's hair, voice thick with certainty. I am, honey, finally I am. Outside, dusk sparked on the new painted sign. Welcome home, it glowed, words as much a promise as a fact. If you came to the Heartline Motor Motel now, you'd find more than a rescued building. You'd find a story unerased, joy threaded through bruise and heartbreak, hope bent but never broken, written every day in the ordinary acts of choosing each other. And every night, with the lilies open and the neon burning steady, Miranda kept Billy's promise alive, quiet, bright, and stubborn as ever. Because some homes aren't handed down, they're fought for, lost, and fiercely remade.